Hello, everybody. This is Rick Manning, Americans for Limited Government. Sometimes here in Washington, D.C., you see things and it shocks you. And there are very few things that shock me, but something Mike Pence's campaign has done is absolutely shocking. He is actually selling swag for quoting his right off of the 2020 indictment by Jack Smith. It's incredible. What a weasel. What a weasel. When you go to his Mike Pence's website, you see he's still 40,000 donors shy of making the debate stage. I don't think he needs to make any plans to be there. And then he's got his official. You go to the swag merchandise, and you get his "Too Honest" T-shirt. Mike Pence for president. Too honest. That is the quote that he actually gave, apparently. But what he says that Donald Trump said about him when he supposedly was pushing back against the idea of him going ahead and turning and saying, we're going to take a harder look at the election fraud on the House floor. So let's just go down. So yeah, Mike Pence. He can't get the people to sign his petition or to give him $5 so he can get on the debate stage, but he'll sell a t-shirt to every never Trumper in the world with a "Too Honest" slogan. Well, let's just take a look at Mike Pence and some of the weaselly things he's done. Here's Mike Pence when he's talking about President Trump being indicted on the election interference probe. So let's just see what he had to say about that, Mr. Too Honest.
January 6th was a tragic day. And I've spoken and written about it extensively. I have nothing to hide. By God's grace, I believe we did our duty that day, fulfilled the oath that I'd taken to the Constitution and to the American people. And the Constitution is quite clear about the role of the Vice President in the counting of electoral votes. It essentially says the Vice President presides over a joint session of Congress where the electoral votes that are certified by the states shall be opened and shall be counted. And then on that day, President Trump asked me to put him over the Constitution, but I chose the Constitution.
Okay, hold on there. Mr. Constitution, as you're talking about this indictment, perhaps you might have looked at it and you might note that as Mr. Constitution here, wrapped in the constitutional flag, you might have actually taken a look at it and discovered that this indictment is nothing more than an attack on political speech. It's no more than an attack on the ability to go and actually seek redress from Congress, and redress which by the way, you certified. So let's just go to. So I'm going to remind Mr. Pence, anybody else who happens to be watching, that there's this thing called the First Amendment. Kind of an important amendment. It's the first one. Bill of Rights. I don't want to go too far into this, but Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for redress and grievances. Yes, even Donald Trump has that right to petition the government for redress and grievances, and the entirety of the fraud indictment is based upon a challenge to President Trump's right to redress grievance, to go to Congress and want to redress a grievance. What was the grievance? There was election fraud. What was he trying to do? He was opening the door for challenges on the House floor and then on the Senate if it passed in the House, stating very clearly that there was election fraud and that the certified electors were fraudulently gained. That is within the law, and I'll show you how I know that. It's really, really simple to know, because here, watch this. This is actually January 6th. This is the Arizona petition thing. And just watch. Mike Pence is in the middle of this. This is on January 6th.
The certificate of the electoral vote of the state of Arizona seems to be regular in form and authentic, and it appears therefrom that Joseph R. Biden Jr. of the state of Delaware received 11 votes for president, and Kamala D. Harris of the state of California received 11 votes for vice president.
Are there any objections to counting the certificate of vote of the state of Arizona that the teller has verified appears to be regular in form and authentic?
Mr. Vice President, I, Paul Gosar from
For
Arizona
what
Sports.
purpose does the gentleman from Arizona rise?
I rise up for myself and 60 of my colleagues to object to the counting of the electoral ballots from Arizona.
Is the objection in writing and signed by a senator?
Yes, it is.
It is.
Now watch this, watch this. Watch what Mike Pence says.
An objection presented in writing and signed by both a representative and a senator complies with the law. Chapter 1 of Title 3 of the United States.
Okay. What Donald Trump's been indicted for complies with the law. Mike Pence's words, not mine. But he's operating as the president of the Senate and the head of the congressional body that had been convened under the Constitution. Mike Pence said that the process that they went through complied with the law. And yet here's what he has to say. Remember, Mr. Constitution. Let me just finish up Mr. Constitution's statement here.
And I always will. I mean, I really do believe that anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. And anyone who asks someone else to put themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States again. I've been very forthright about this issue, and I'll continue to be. Now, with regard to the substance of the indictment, I've been very clear. I had hoped it wouldn't come to this. I had hoped that this issue and the judgment of the president's actions that day would be left to the American people. But now it's been brought in a criminal indictment, and I can't assess whether or not the government has the evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt what they assert.
Okay. He can't assess that. Well, I assessed it in about 4 seconds when I saw what they said, because I knew that you have a right to petition the government, because I'm actually aware of the First Amendment, which apparently Mike is not. And this kind of pains me, because basically, and this is a sad thing, I spent a lot of time in the White House and everything, but I really only got one individualized picture with anybody at the White House. And I'm just going to go full screen here. So my personal revelation, this is my moment of revelation for you all. The only person who I got a one-on-one picture with in the White House is me and Mike Pence. So me and Mike Pence, he's the only guy. I did an event out in Indianapolis dealing with ending NAFTA, and Mike Pence was there, and we got our picture taken. So I'm kind of embarrassed that that's my only picture I have out of one-on-one with any of these guys, but oh well. Anyway, so this guy, he's a complete phony, complete fraud. Let's just go and let's look at election night. Just a reminder, here's President Trump, but you'll note that Mike Pence is going to come on in a second.
Ohio, a tremendous state, a big state.
Once again, this was on election night of 2020. Donald Trump is reacting to some of the things that are going on, the places like Fulton County and elsewhere, deciding that they've got a water leak and they have to shut down their counting for the evening. So he is reacting to that. He had not seen any video of anything that went on in there at this point. So here's Donald Trump reacting to that.
I love Ohio. We won by 8.1%, 461. Think of it. Almost 500,000 votes. North Carolina, big victory with North Carolina. And so we won there. We lead by 76,000 votes with almost nothing left. And all of a sudden, everything just stopped. This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. We did win this election. So our goal now is to ensure the integrity for the good of this nation. This is a very big moment. This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay? It's a very sad moment. To me, this is a very sad moment, and we will win this. And we, as far as I'm concerned, we already have won it. So I just want to thank you. And I want to thank all of our support. I want to thank all of the people that worked with us. And Mr. Vice President, say a few words, please. Please.
Let's try to unpack now some of what we saw from the president right there as Vice President Pence starts to talk.
And
It is true
not the
that
one that
President
decided
Trump
was-
has won the states of
Here's the key. When you see this going on, George Stephanopoulos steps on it. And I put the wrong video up, so my apologies. But the Stephanopoulos steps on it. Pence does go on to talk about affirm the concerns about voter fraud. He says all those things. So he was on board on the fraud train right there. He was on board with following the process all the way into on January 6th. And yet, he called it the outrage of, I'm going to go just to the U.S. courts. I want to remind people of what this indictment actually says. And you just go to page 2. The first thing we went over yesterday, I encourage you to look at the video from yesterday. We went over the what USC 371 is, 18 USC 371. It's the fraud statute. It's basically 2 paragraphs. One paragraph that gives you what fraud is, and the second paragraph tells you that if it's not that bad, it can be a misdemeanor. But then you get into the indictment, the introduction. The introduction is important because it sets the tone and it tells you the story. And what Jack Smith does is he admits that Donald Trump has a right, like every American, to speak publicly about the election, even to claim, I'm going to make this bigger so you can read it better, and even to claim falsely that there had been outcome determinative fraud during the election that he had won. He was also entitled to formally challenge the results of the election through lawful and appropriate means, such as by seeking recounts or audits of the popular vote in states or filing lawsuits challenging ballots and procedures. Indeed, in many cases, the defendant did pursue these methods of contesting the election result. His effort to change the outcome in any state that recounts, audits, or legal challenges were uniformly unsuccessful. Shortly after Election Day, the defendant also pursued unlawful means of discounting illegitimate votes and subverting the election result. And in so doing, the defendant perpetrated 3 criminal conspiracies. Okay, the thing he's talking about, he is actually saying this push to have the Congress review the results of the election, which Congress does. As a reminder, Mike Pence cites the law where Congress reviews the election, where a member of Congress can object with a senator and a House member have to agree, can object to the election results of any state. That happens. You have Representative Paul Gosar get up and say, I object. In case you want to see it again, you can watch, let's see here. It's in this one, it's Scott Perry from Pennsylvania objects to the Pennsylvania votes being counted. And we have, on the other hand, we have Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri, being the Senate sponsor of it. So
What reason does the gentleman from Pennsylvania rise?
Mr. President, sadly but resolutely, I object to the electoral votes of my beloved Commonwealth of Pennsylvania on the grounds of multiple constitutional infractions that they were not, under all of the known circumstances, regularly given. And on this occasion, I have a written objection signed by a senator and 80 members of the House of Representatives.
Is the objection in writing and signed by a senator?
Yes, Mr. President, it is.
An objection presented in writing and signed by both a representative and a senator complies with the law. Chapter 1, Title 3 of the United States Code. The clerk will report the objection.
Okay, so once again, Mike Pence goes off and says,
United States Senator,
and goes off and says, you know, we've got a senator, we've got a House member, this is perfectly lawful. So what the heck is he talking about when he talks about this, about the entirety of this indictment? Why did he say Donald Trump I may not have agreed with what his tactic was, but he had a right to conduct that. He had a right to do it. But no, Mike Pence, he's now playing victim, and he's a victim. He's going to run around and be a victim now. He's going to sell T-shirts and how noble he is. Probably get another book deal that for a book that nobody will buy. He'll undoubtedly go around and get paid by some Never Trump think tank a bunch of money to to do stuff. But this guy can't be president. This guy's an idiot. Okay, this guy's a wishy-washy weasel who, on one hand, says there's fraud. Stand with me. There's fraud. We're going to fight. And on the other hand, sits there and says, well, Donald Trump was mean to me, and I didn't want to do what he did and what he wanted me to do, and I didn't. But what a wimp. So yeah, you want to get down to brass tacks. You can't sit there and go this way. This is Mike Pence reacting to President Trump's indictment in New York.
I want to begin with the New York grand jury, as you well know, as all of our viewers know by now, voting to indict the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. He's now the first former president in American history to be criminally charged. It's a really significant development. I want to get your reaction to this unprecedented development.
Well, I think the unprecedented indictment of a former president of the United States on a campaign finance issue is an outrage. And it appears to millions of Americans to be nothing more than a political prosecution that's driven by a prosecutor who literally ran for office on the pledge to indict the former president.
But it wasn't just...
Okay, so, he gets it right. He had his lines right then. He was right. But something happened. And what happened was he was running about 4 or 5% in the polls. He's doing terribly, and he has to appeal to somebody. He believes that he can raise the money to be able to have a campaign for president if he sells enough T-shirts and if he appeals to enough big donors, Never Trump donors. He is, by the way, if he's called as a witness, what a terrible witness. I mean, could there be a worse witness than a guy who actually certified that it was legal for President Trump to have pursued the course he did? That's a pretty terrible witness. How about a witness who said on repeated occasions that there was voter fraud and there was a problem? That's a pretty terrible witness. Now, he's going to talk about things that were discussed internally in the White House. And, he's going to talk about, when they're talking about options and different things that could be done. But the bottom line is, anybody who paid attention knew there was voter fraud of some sort. Did it rise to the level that it would have changed the results? I think, we never got a court case where they allow that case to be made. So I don't know that answer. What I know is there are thousands of affidavits saying that there was voter fraud of some sort. Okay, let's just be real. Secondly, this Mike Pence guy, he believed there was voter fraud too. He agreed there was voter fraud. He certified the vote, which actually caused the delegates, the electoral college votes from Arizona and Pennsylvania to both be certified and both vote for Biden. But he went through the legal process under the law that says you could do it. And oh, by the way, the complaint that says, oh, well, Donald Trump wanted him to send the results back to the states to have them recertify, to check their work. You know, that question that he says, oh, I couldn't do that. Well, you know why? How we know he could have? Because what happened between January 6 and January 20 was the House and the Senate changed the law that had been in existence since 1884, or 1886, I'm sorry. And they changed the law. They changed the law in a very specific way to make it so the vice president only had a magisterial role and didn't have an actual active role in the proceedings. Well, they didn't need to change the law if there wasn't contested as to what he could not have done. And let me just ask you, would an honest man, if he believed that there was a chance that a presidential election had been unfairly decided, have said, I won't take every step necessary to go forward and try to make certain that the will of the people was in fact met? That's what Donald Trump did, to great harm to himself and now an indictment. He said, I'm going to do what's necessary to try to play all possible remedies out, including going to Congress, including going around to the states to do an investigation, to lay out the facts about what happened in those various states, the various fraudulent activities that occurred. Donald Trump kept his word from Election Day when he said, this is an outrage and we're going to get to the bottom of this. Unfortunately, that's not that common in Washington, D.C. And there's an old truism, and I think that I learned a long time ago. If you're driving by a used car lot and the name of the used car lot is Honest Joe's, run like heck and hold on to your wallet, because it's anything but that. So take it for what it's worth when Mike Pence tries to sell a t-shirt that he's too honest. Sounds like a used car salesman to me. I'll go to our chat room, see how we're doing here. Okay. Boop, 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 boop. Go up to the top. Mike Pence, not very popular in the chat. I'm not gonna read some of this stuff, but people are pretty. I'll do this Jerry Bloom one because it's not on topic, but it is something the guy said with Tucker Carlson. You just can't believe. He openly admitted he is more worried about how many tanks Ukraine has and he doesn't care about Americans. Yeah, that's exactly what he said with Tucker Carlson. It's Tucker Carlson, rather. Hard to believe. I don't know who she's referring to, but she's not happy. He chose the Constitution of the deep state. We, not the people. He could have easily voted Trump in to evade this mess, but he didn't. Pence is an idiot. Well, I'm gonna say this. If he had you can have an honest disagreement, and I didn't agree with what Mike Pence chose, but you can have an honest disagreement about what you should do or shouldn't do. He had a responsibility to do what he thought was right. What I don't like is that after the fact, and now he's busy trying to profiteer off of Trump's indictment. He's running around playing the sanctimonious one, talking about the Constitution when the indictment itself violates the very precept of the First Amendment of the Constitution. He's not standing for the Constitution. He's standing up for a legacy, a personal legacy that he's trying to establish in the history books written 100 years from now by people who will hate him. That's what he's doing. And like many of the people in Washington, D.C., like I say, Once somebody starts tagging themselves as honest, run, don't hide, run and hide. It's don't walk. Let's see here. Now, there are some honest people in Washington, D.C. I don't want to dissuade you of that notion. There are. You want to know who's really, I want to show you the guy who has had guts. I showed him before. Paul Gosar has guts. He stood up and did what he thought was right when he challenged the Arizona delegation. The Scott Perry from Pennsylvania has guts when he stood up and challenged the Pennsylvania delegation. Scott Perry challenged the to give you timing on that. You had, everybody knows what happened January 6th. The Arizona vote was happening when January 6th went all backwards, okay? And I don't know what happened with that. I'm getting out of that mess. January 6th was January 6th, all the stuff going on outside was happening. The vote had been called for. There is at that point, you have all hell breaks loose, and they have to come back later on and vote. Scott Perry said, even after all of that, got up and made his motion. Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri, after all of that, got up and made the motion as a senator. That's guts. That's standing up for what you believe is right. It's not these people pontificating and running around and saying and calling Donald Trump names and under the guise of the Constitution. I mean, that's basically tried narrative setting for your future, and it's a lie. This is you want to take guts and honesty? Scott Perry, Paul Gosar, Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, the ones who put their names and faces out there. The House members who voted to take down and say we don't want the Arizona delegation to move forward. The ones who voted the same way on the Pennsylvania delegation. Those people have guts. The rest of these people, maybe not. Let's see what else we have. Betsy, I've never liked Pence. It was his eyes when I looked at him; they were dead. Now I hear him say he doesn't care about American people; he cares about Ukraine. Betsy, there's a lot of people with dead eyes in D.C. I hope I'm not one of them, but the D.C. could give you dead eyes in a hurry. I will tell you that Mike Pence has a reputation as being a hardcore, very strong reputation with people who are in the pro-life movement. And I have no reason to disbelieve that he is extremely pro-life. He's always voted that way. But I'll tell you what, nothing changed until Donald Trump became president. You kept getting people into judgeships who were pro-life until they had to vote on it as a court. Nothing changed until Donald Trump became president. That's the truth. And I was in a meeting. Well, I'll tell this story at some other point, but on that. But it was you could say a lot of things about Donald Trump, but we all know he shoots from the hip, and he gave an extemporaneous statement at a meeting I was at with about 20 people on the life issue, and you would not find a stronger statement on the life issue from anybody in America. It was not an open meeting, so I'm not, but the fact is that did occur. And Mike Pence was there, and Mike Pence didn't have a word to say. And truthfully, that wasn't his role. So let's just, in fairness. Yeah, Robert keeps telling me it's the wrong clip. Play the C-SPAN one. That was the C-SPAN one, Robert. Well, I think one of the things that I think we need to do on this is, you know, yeah, I found the Mike Pence website. You know, if you found the Mike Pence website, you know, feel free to go on there and let them know what you think about it. I think that's fair. I've been told by my sister that I need to get WD-40, which I will do, and share this broadcast. If you find it interesting, you find it helpful, you find it useful, share this broadcast. And with that, I'm going to end it. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I just wanted to show you with that selling the merch it's just so wrong. And I just irritates me. And I wanted to show you what was going on because if it hit me in the gut, I know it hit a lot of you in the gut. I can't imagine, no matter how, even if you hated Donald Trump, trying to profiteer off of his indictment. I mean, that's lower than low. And with that, I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you very much for tuning in.